every aspect they can, because you know why? They fully understand one point. These people are very smart and they're very tough. They understand they cannot win elections of the American people when you go to paper ballots. So they're going to weaponize everything around it. And if you think you've seen their toughest moves, or you think you've seen the hammer drop, we haven't seen anything yet. One thing about this conference and going forward, they've sown the wind and they're going to reap the whirlwind, because the American people are going to demand full forensic audits of 3 November 2020 in every state. That's what they feared. If they had the receipts, it would be totally open. They would rub your nose in it every day. They would show you every ballot. It wouldn't have to be any subpoenas. They would turn the routers over. They say, you not just lost, you got skunked. You lost Arizona, you lost Georgia, you lost these states. All the blue wall that we won in 16, you lost, you lost, you lost. They can't prove it. They don't have the receipts. So they're going to use every aspect of lawfare, of the media, of the criminal justice system, of everything they possibly can to do what? To thwart the will of the American people. And that's why this effort over at Telegram and what Mike Lindell's done, and the convergence of this now into a national movement. There's no going forward. There's no 2022. There's no 2024. The Republicans say, oh, elections are about the future. The future is now, and the future is about 3 November. There's three things in this world. There's three things in this world right now. 3 events. If we get to the bottom of it, everything becomes clear. What happened in the Wuhan lab and who's responsible for it. That virus, number 1. Number 2, what happened on 3 November of 2020. Who's responsible and who's going to be held accountable. And the third is what happened on 1/6. Was it a failure of intelligence as we've been processed and been told? Or is it a failed intelligence operation against the American people? You get to the bottom of those 3 things, you find out who's responsible, and you hold them accountable, and you're going to get your country back, okay? Yeah. And it's going to be the country that was bequeathed to us. It's going to be a constitutional republic that's been passed down for, 12, 13 generations to this generation. That is the calling of everybody in this room, okay? History is going to weigh and measure us. Because of these great patriots, we know what went on, and all they want us to do is quit. All they want us to do is say, yes, we'll get them in 2022, we'll get them in 2024. Let's go change some laws. Let's change laws in Georgia. Raise more money. No, that's the sucker's play. That's the great con. And if you want to see the con, you want to see the scam, just look at the vote today in the infrastructure bill. There is no reason a conservative should vote for that bill. Number one. Here's the con. They can't raise the debt ceiling by 1 penny. They can't spend 1 penny that you don't authorize, okay? So what they're trying to do now is a 3-card money, shell game. And the uniparty's trying to support the Biden administration as it implodes before our eyes. And why is it imploding? It's not just his incompetence. It's not just the radical nature of this regime. It's not just what's the invasion on the southern border, what they're doing to our military, critical race theory jammed in our schools, this debacle, right, with the vaccines and with the CCP virus. The central beating heart is the American people are sitting there going, you know what? The more I hear about it, and I'm not hearing it on mainstream media except on MSNBC that covers it every night, and they covered it every night in their own perspective, but they cover the details of everything that's happening. When people sit there, you go, you know what? I've got a lot of questions about 3 November. I've got questions about his legitimacy. And as people question his legitimacy, his political capital recedes before us, right? That's why it's not going to be 10 new states. That's why it's not going to be 50 new Supreme Court justices. Do not look at the pro wrestling in the foreground that they're trying to get you to focus on. That's noise. This is signal. With no money, they can't do anything. And you are the only people in the world that can grant them to raise that debt ceiling, right? If they can't raise that debt ceiling, there's no $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. There's no $3.5 trillion radical Green New Deal that's really all these social programs wrapped up into one. You have the ultimate power. You have the power on November 3rd. You have the power to get to the bottom of the 1/6. You have the power to get to the bottom of the Wuhan lab where we've changed all what the world thought about it, right? That it came from some cave. 1,000 miles from Wuhan, and somehow mysteriously wandered up over the back roads and mountains of China to a wet market in Wuhan. We know that's a lie. We know what happened on 3 November, what they told us is a lie. And we're about to find out what 1/6 happened on 1/6 is a lie. Okay? They cannot stop you, and they fear you, and they will use anything to chop the leaders of this movement, whether it's Donald Trump or Jair Bolsonaro. They will use any method they can. And the one thing they can't stop is a righteous, relentless people that determine they're not going to back off. And so we leave here in the next couple of days. Your righteous indignation is what's going to save this nation.
Well, here's a providential thing. We talked about the word righteous. There's something really sweet about what's happening here and what's happened this past 9 months or so. Remember on January 6th what happened. We were going to present the electors, but there were 7 states that had dueling electors. Those electors are unsealed and counted alphabetically. And wouldn't you know, right when Arizona was opened, curious thing happened. This breach. And all of a sudden, we can't get to the heart of the fraud that the American people wanted to know more about through the rule of law. And it's curious that it was Arizona that was silenced when all they wanted was like a 10-day investigation. That was what was being asked by Senator Ted Cruz. Look what happened, though. Look who rose to the forefront. The state of Arizona. Right? And instead of a measly 10 days with a bunch of politicians looking at stuff they didn't understand, they got 60 full days and counting with people that got the best experts in the country. And right now, we have it all. We don't have the routers, but we still have enough. Okay, so it's these divine providences where the enemy thinks they've won by going through this smoke and mirrors debacle, but we the people, demanded more. And we had some courageous senators that helped accomplish that. So Maricopa is still in play. Great news is going to come out of there. We know it. Just have faith. But the enemy intended the 6th for a different outcome. And we're seeing an exact opposite, where Arizona is just shining very bright. So I can't wait till we get to the next state, and the next state, and the next state. And once we have enough of those electoral votes where you can subtract, get down below 270, and we get the real president back in office, we still have to proceed. We still have to do a full forensic audit in every state. Why? Because what we've just seen over the past hour, 2 hours, we have corruption everywhere. And we have to root it out. We got to build the foundation all over again.
I think this is very important, what David's saying. For too long, you've let the professional politicians not just make decisions in the country, but you've let them run elections. The thing that is the most powerful about this movement is personified in Arizona. Why do every day on the show I call that convention center the new Concord Bridge, right? Because when that interim report comes out on the numbers, right? When that interim report comes out on the recanvassing, that's going to be the shot heard around the world, right? Because you've been told time and time and time again that this is nonsense, it was perfect, everything was okay, and it has been the relentless move of essentially volunteers, nameless volunteers in that convention center that on global TV, 24 hours a day, you saw them doing the process, right? And none of them came out in front of the media, in front of the cameras and said, it's me, I've been doing this. This is the same thing that happened in Lexington and Concord. We don't, except for 1 or 2 people, we don't know who was there on those bridges. We don't know who was at Concord Green or at Lexington Green. That's the backbone and the DNA of American patriotism. That's why what's happening in Arizona is so important. Why do you think they hate Colonel Wendy Rogers? Why do you think they hate Sonny Borelli? Why does Mark Fincham worry them? Because now you have people that are prepared to back, elected officials prepared to back the will of the people. And it is the will of the people in Arizona that's coming forth. What has inspired this movement that's now on Telegram? What has inspired people in Georgia? Ask John Fredericks, who broadcasts about Georgia every day. It is this movement of patriots. It's a populist movement that you're seeing, and that's spreading everywhere. That's why you have moms at the school boards. That's where you're confronting CRT. That's where you're confronting mask on kids. That's why people are sitting there going, no, I need more information about the vaccines, okay? In 6 weeks, they're going to come back and say that you people are going to destroy the full faith and credit of the United States because you're not prepared to back off the debt ceiling. When you, in fact, are the full faith and credit of the United States. It all rests on your shoulders, right? You pay all the taxes. It's your pension funds that drive all the industry. All power rests with you. It's always rested with you. We've just gone asleep for a long period of time. And that's the providential nature of what they stole. It is providential that they stole this on November 3rd, because now there's no questions. You've seen the radical nature of this regime. Is this cultural Marxism? This is nothing different than what the Red Guard did under Mao in the 60s. This is nothing different than what the Bolsheviks did in Russia at the turn of the 20th century. This is nothing different than the radical nature of the French Revolution, not about people having rights, but the radical nature to destroy all of society and to destroy religion. And at the end of the day, get to the central thing they know they must destroy, and that's the family, the nuclear family. We've seen it. They've played all their face cards. So now we know, and there's no middle ground. There is no compromise for this. It's either one side or the other, okay? And that's why any politician that tells you about 2022 or 2024 and give me money and let's focus on that and elections on the future, we got to get more election laws, that is a bald-faced lie. It only depends on what happened on 3 November, how we get to the bottom of it, and how we write it.
If and when they don't, at first pull your punches. If they persist, pull the plug. It's still trust, but verify. It's still play, but cut the cards. It's still watch closely, and don't be afraid to see what you see.